Hi, I'm Selena from Annie's Bookshop of Worcester, and I'm here with Ruth Spiro. Do you pronounce it Spiro or Spiro?
Actually, it's Spiro,
Okay, I'm glad I
but everyone
asked.
says Spiro, so it's fine.
Ruth Spiro, who is a children's book author. And I'm going to let you actually, for readers unfamiliar with your work, I'm going to let you describe what you write and maybe show us a little bit about what you write.
Sure. Okay. So I'm the author of the Baby Love Science series of board books. I also write picture books, and this is one of them made by Maxine. But I think I'm best known for my series of board books. And these are all complex science concepts that are distilled to the very simple ideas that a small child could understand. And I think should I read a little bit? So
That would
those who
be
are
great.
unfamiliar, okay. Great. So this one is the first one that came out, and it's called Baby Loves Aerospace Engineering, which sounds like a really complicated idea. However, once I start reading, you'll see how simple it actually could be. Hello, bird. Bird can fly. How does bird fly? She has wings. The top of her wing is curved and the bottom of her wing is flat. Bird flaps her wings and they lift her into the air. Swoosh! Goodbye, bird. Wings help an airplane fly too. Does an airplane flap its wings? No, it has engines. The engines help the plane go fast, fast, fast. Then the wings lift the plane into the air. Whoosh! If bird wants to see outer space, her wings cannot take her there. Sorry, bird. An airplane cannot take her there either. And I'm going to stop here. And if you would like to find out how bird gets to outer space, you'll have to read the book yourself.
That's great. Wonderful. So, what can readers expect from your newest books? And
Wow. Okay, so the newest books in the Baby Love Science grouping, I have a new collection of the 5 senses. So, and they're all 5 senses are in this box set. They can be purchased individually as well, but this is, perfect for gift giving. And what's really fun is it comes with this growth chart that you can hang up on the wall, and it has room to fill in like milestones, which is just the cutest thing. So anyway, what I really love about this new group of the 5 senses is there's obviously one for each, is I have taken a lot of care to make sure that they're inclusive and that they acknowledge the fact that not everyone experiences their senses in the same way. So these really take a deep dive into, I've always wondered, like, what is sound? I can hear sound, but I can't see it. So when I have questions like that, I assume little kids have questions like that too. So I learned a lot of things about sound and molecules and waves. And then it shows how the sound waves enter your ear and what the inside of your ear, well, this is a pretty version of what the inside of your ear looks like. And what is really exciting about these books, and that I'm getting some great feedback on, is that they're inclusive. So this one says, sometimes ears need help. A hearing aid can make sounds louder, and a cochlear implant can turn sounds into electrical signals. So I'm getting all these fun, wonderful messages from parents and educators, saying, oh, my child sees themselves in this book, and that doesn't happen very often. And then also there's a child who's using sign language. And in the sight book, sometimes eyes need help, right? Like we wear, let's find that beautiful page in here. So sometimes, eyes need help. And so glasses can help us see better. And some people don't see at all, and they use other senses to read books and, get around. So that site, and then I just have to show you this cover. I know I can talk, I can gush about these books forever. It's just the cutest thing. You've had this little girl. And that brings me to, I always have to mention Irene Chan. She's the illustrator of these books, and she has done such an amazing job that I just always have to give her credit. So, there are obviously 5 books in the box set, and that is brand new. It just came out, and I think it's a great idea for holiday presents or baby showers.
That's great. So what was the inspiration for your books?
I can tell you exactly. This is like I don't know if you remember the movie Working Girl, where Melanie Griffith pulls out the papers from her folder and says, well, I saw this article and I read this and this and I put this together. So I have an exact story like that. So in 2010, there was an article in the New York Times about how picture book sales were way down. And part of that was attributed to the fact that parents were bypassing picture books for what they thought was more sophisticated reading material. So they would be reading, picture books to very little ones, and then they'd be, reading like what am I thinking of? Like chapter books to 3-year-olds, and Harry Potter to 5-year-olds. I mean, they were really just moving kids really too quickly into more what they thought was more sophisticated reading material. But it's really important for kids to be able to follow the text and the illustrations in picture books. They learn about storytelling that way, and they learn how things progress from one thing to the next. And the interesting thing that a lot of parents may not realize is that picture books, because they're meant to be read to children, not read by children, they actually do have a higher reading level. So for example, this book comes out at like a mid-3rd grade reading level, even though you can read it to a 3-year-old and they will of course understand it. So there was a lot of misunderstanding about the value of picture books. And I was with some writer friends, and we were talking about this whole article, and I said, what do these parents want? Like quantum physics for babies? And when I first said it, it was just a joke, and I thought, oh, haha. But then I started to think about it, and I started to think about, well, what if I took some complex science ideas and distilled them down to the very essence? What would that look like for a small child? How would I take something like aerospace engineering and present it in a way that a really little toddler or preschooler could understand? And so before I even did any of the science research, I did research into child development to learn about how babies acquire language and to learn what was appropriate at different developmental levels. And then I used what I learned in that research to inform how I would craft these books. And am I trying to teach engineering to an infant? Absolutely not. But what I'm trying to do is encourage children and parents to look around at everything around them and understand that there's science behind almost everything that we see. When you're building a tower with blocks, and you knock that down, that's science. When you go to the park and go down the slide, that's gravity. And when you watch a bird fly, the bird flies because of physics. It's because of the shape of its wings. So that is a very long way of explaining what my inspiration was for the books. And it wasn't to teach quantum physics to babies at all, but it was to help little children see that science is all around us, and that if we break it down, it's not intimidating, it can be interesting, and it can be fun.
So you must have done a lot of research for all of these books.
I did. I mean, before I even wrote the first one, I probably spent about 1.5 years just learning, reading about child development and what would be appropriate, and actually look to like Mem Fox, who writes about reading aloud to children and what types of books are good for reading aloud to children, and board books and picture books and all that. And then for each topic, I have to do an extensive amount of research because I have to understand enough of it to then be able to explain it. So it does, they all take a lot of research.
Right. Wow. So what was the biggest challenge in writing and putting out your newest books, and how did you overcome that challenge?
Let's see. I mean, the biggest challenge with all of them really is doing the research and understanding it, and then trying to figure out what's the most important aspect of this. Because, you know, if I'm going to write about gravity or, any of these topics, there's so much there. I mean, I could, write an entire thick book about it. So it's the challenge to me is to understand enough about the topic and then relate it to something that a small child would be familiar with, because that's how they learn best, is if we relate aerospace or the physics of flight and you relate it to watching a bird fly, or if you relate going to the park and going down the slide, or all parents know how babies will drop food from the high chair to watch it fall. Well, that's gravity. They're experimenting with gravity, and there's actually research, I think, out of Johns Hopkins that demonstrated that babies as young as 8 or 9 months old understand the physics of gravity, and they understand that if you drop a Cheerio from your high chair, it's not going to hover in the air. It's going to fall and hit the ground. And they understand that. So they do intuitively understand some of these concepts from a very young age. But the challenge is to find something in the real world and in what they observe and experience that they can relate, to the science.
So you must have also researched what topics children might be really interested in as well.
Well, what I really do in order to come up with topics is think about, my daughters are older now, but I think about some of the experiences that we had and some of the questions that they asked. So, excuse me, I'm not taking topics and throwing it out at them. I am trying to find out what they are most interested in and then writing books about that. So I have a list of different questions or different things that, we like to do when my kids were little. I also get a lot of emails from parents and from educators who are interested in certain topics. But to me, the value is in being able to relate that to the science, to something that is familiar to a child, because that's what educators would call scaffolding. And it's taking something that they already understand and then building upon that, building that knowledge. So that's how I really come up with topics, is looking at what would be familiar to kids and then showing, sort of pulling back the curtain and showing them, hey, look, there's science behind this.
Great. Okay. Now, I've got some questions for you about being a writer.
Okay.
What's your favorite part of being a writer on the whole writing and publishing process? And also, what do you think has been your greatest lesson in your journey so far?
Those are good questions. So, what I really like there's a couple things I like about being a writer. And I would say one of them is that I can do it in my pajamas in my house. And especially, these days, that's really nice. But I like that I can explore my own curiosity when I'm writing, and that I can do research and learn about new things. But I also really like interacting with kids. And normally I do a lot of school visits where I visit schools, or I do library programs or bookstore events. And to me, the best part is reading my books to kids and interacting with them and seeing how they enjoy them. So that it's getting that response, and knowing that something that I worked very hard on and that was important to me, is now something that, it's a child's favorite book or something that they really enjoy. So it's that making connection. And then I know you had another question there, but I think I forgot.
Your greatest lesson.
My greatest lesson. My greatest lesson. You know, I've had to learn to not compare myself to other authors because
Right.
everyone is on their own path. And some authors, um, I don't know, it's just, I've just learned to not look at other people and say, oh, look, that book is selling really well, or that book is getting a lot more attention than mine. I mean, my books, they're not necessarily, they don't win like Newbery Awards or Caldecott's, or, they're not like those types of books. But then when a parent sends me a picture of their child, like clutching it and falling asleep in their crib, that's better than any like award I could ever get, right? Is that connection. So it's just, I would have to say it's just not comparing myself and just focusing on what I'm really trying to do, and being rewarded by the response that I get.
And you said you told me that you go to school visits and things like that, and you enjoy those.
I do. Now I'm doing more like virtual visits where
Right.
a school will have me, come and we do it this way. But I really enjoy going and being in that big smelly auditorium or gym, with all the kids that are sitting crisscross applesauce, and they're all wiggly, and just like reading my stories and talking about being an author. And that's really the fun part.
Right. So, what do you consider the most challenging part of the writing process, um, and how do you overcome that?
What's really challenging for me is, so I'll write a first draft and then I send it to, it depends. If it's something that's brand new, I send it to my agent. But if it's something that's part of like a series or something that I already have under contract, then I'll send it to my editor. But either way, they will both send me back a lot of notes, like revision notes. And that's hard for me. It's not hard. I mean, I don't, it's just, you write something and you think it's good, and then somebody else reads it and they're like, well, I didn't understand this, or can you add more here? So it's a little daunting sometimes to get back a manuscript and have all these notes all over it and think, oh boy, I really have a lot more work to do. But that's okay. But when you first get that, it's a little jarring, and it's I just have to remind myself to breathe and say, okay, I will just tackle these issues one at a time. And uh, the notes that I get either from my agent or my editor, they always make the books better. They're always much better. But when I first see them, it can be a little intimidating.
And what piece of advice would you want to share with other writers?
Um, I would love to tell other writers and aspiring authors that the best thing that you can do to become a better writer is to do a lot of reading, and read books that are out there now, read brand new books that are coming out. Sometimes I'm contacted by someone who's written a picture book and they want to get it published, but it's, they're not immersed in the world of children's books as it is now. They might be thinking of books that were popular when they were younger, or books that they read to their children 30 years ago. It's really important to um, go to the bookstore a lot, go to the library a lot, and when you can, and become familiar with what's out there right now and what's being published. That's for people who want to get published. And in terms of just in general, I think the best way to become a better writer is to read a lot.
Okay. And are there any groups, clubs, or organizations that you would recommend to other writers, and or some that have helped you with your career?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think the number one group would be SCBWI, which is the
Yeah.
Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. I joined that really early on in my career, and I went to, they have an annual conference, and I went to the conference and was able to get a manuscript critique at that conference. And then ended up making a connection, and that was how I sold my first picture book. And I sold it to the first editor who read it, and it was the first manuscript I ever sent out. And it's a very unusual story when it comes to
Wow.
publishing in the children's book world. But it's a great way to learn about the publishing business and learn about the craft of writing, and also connect with other writers and illustrators. I know even now that SCBWI, they're not able to have in-person conferences, but they're doing a lot of digital workshops and programs and presentations, and I've signed up for those. And I mean, even at this point in my career, there's always something that I find helpful or that I learn from. So, and there, SCBWI has chapters all over, so there will be a chapter in your state, and there might be even a network that's in your community that you can connect with. And again, a lot of times those groups are, they'll meet at like a coffee shop or someone's home or whatever. And now a lot of those groups are meeting virtually, but the more connections that you can make, I think that's really helpful.
Great. Yeah, it's a wonderful organization. Yeah. All right. Now, let me ask you a couple of other questions about you. What's the one thing that most people don't realize about you?
Well, I have an MBA. I started out, I have my bachelor's degree is in advertising, and I worked in an advertising agency for a while, and then I worked in nonprofit, and I have an MBA in personnel management, and I worked in that field for a while until I decided to stay home with my daughters when they were little. So, and I never went back to the corporate world. But it's actually really helped me because I think it's important to recognize that publishing is a business. And I think a lot of writers have fragile egos, and they believe, well, this is the work of my heart and it should be out there. And well, if the publisher is making an investment when they buy your book, so they want to make sure that if they make this investment in your book, that they're going to be able to get a return on their investment and they're going to be able to sell it. And so that kind of helps me recognize what publishers are looking for, and how to promote my work and how to connect with people. And actually give a whole presentation on this, but it's sort of using the skills that I learned in business school to help my writing career.
That's excellent. My next question for you is, what question do you wish interviewers would ask you, and what would your answer be?
That is such a hard question, because I often find that interviewers ask some really interesting, questions that sort of take me off guard. That's a really tough question for me to answer. Maybe are there particular what have been some highlights of what I've done, or people that I've met, or maybe people that have been particularly helpful to me. And one thing I would mention with that is I had the wonderful opportunity and blessing to stay at Jane Yolen's house and attend a picture book boot camp that she presented. And it was, there were 10 of us that were invited, and we spent 3 days just soaking up everything that we could. And I've had some really interesting experiences like that, where my writing has allowed me to meet and interact with and learn from people who I greatly admire in the field.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, she's a wonderful person.
Yes,
Yeah.
as is her daughter, Heidi.
Yep. Oh, yes. So what is and are your passions when you're not writing, and how do you make time for your non-writing hobbies and things that you love?
It's funny because for so long I was, I'm a mom, And for so long, my passion was my family and my kids, and going to, you know, softball games and field hockey and um, uh, um, what's cross country, you know, like not cross country, but like I don't know, I'm blanking, but like all of the sports and the activities that my daughters did. And that, to me, that was, you know, fun, just packing up and bringing the chairs and the coolers and sitting outside and watching games and um, being a part of that, and just watch, you know, helping them with their homework and just watching them grow into adults. So during that time, I wasn't really cultivating a lot of hobbies and things on my own other than my writing. But that was always something I would fit in, you know, here and there, like if I had time. So now that they're older, one of them is out of college and she's working, and the other one is now in graduate school. It's opened up a lot of time for me to explore what am I interested in doing. You know, I am spending a lot more time writing and researching, but I'm spending time reading and cooking and, you know, spending time with friends. I mean, I think that a lot of times we are so absorbed by what's going on in just day-to-day life that we don't necessarily have time to think about, well, gee, what do I really want to be doing, you know? And now that I'm kind of an empty nester, although my daughter who's in graduate school is back home, but she's doing her own thing, I've had a little bit more time, you know, to explore, like, what do I want to be doing with that free time? You know, getting on exercise schedules, going for walks, meeting with friends, you know, looking up new recipes to cook, things like that. So that's
Hey, oh, that's great. So, what does your writing space look like, and what do you need to absolutely need to have around you while you're writing or editing?
well, this is my writing space right here. This, I'm in my office. This is my books behind me. And I have my nice big desk here. I have a window in front of me that looks out onto the street that's in front of my home. I have my coffee. I have my water. And I mean, that's about it. I mean, I think that, you know, the most important thing is just feeling that, you know, I'm in my comfortable chair, I'm in my comfortable space. Now, normally I like to also go out. You know, I might want to go sit in the coffee shop or go to the library or, you know, wherever, which I can't do these days. But I'm thankful that I do have a dedicated space for my writing and for my work.
Now, do you, while you're writing, do you prefer music or silence or
I need
whatever?
quiet. I mean, sometimes I'll listen to, I can't listen to music that has words because I find it really distracting. And I know a lot of other authors have playlists that they listen to of songs. I It just pulls me out of what I'm trying to do. So I do best really if it's quiet, or if I just have some other kind of music, but it can't have any words.
Yeah, I agree with that one.
Hmm.
And writers often have furry or feathered or otherwise non-human companions to help them or hinder them through their work. And do you have any of those kinds of things?
Well, so it's interesting that you mentioned that. My book, Made by Maxine, I'm going to read you the dedication. So this book is dedicated for Lily and all the furry, fuzzy, feathered, and scaly family members who make our hearts and homes happier. Because this book is about a girl and her goldfish who's really important to her, right?
Uh,
No matter what kind of a pet we have, they're important to us. So here, I'm going to swing this around, and there is my Lily. She is, Lily is 13 years old, and she is my constant companion. She would really like it if I would put her like in a baby Bjorn and wear her. She just really likes to be next to me all the time, but she's always right next to me. And part of this book was sort of inspired by the love that we have for our pets and how we would really do just about anything for them.
Oh, that's great. And do you have any favorite food or drink that you have to have with you?
No, I mean, I just, I like my cup of coffee in the morning. I'm not like drinking, I'm not one of those people that, drinks 12 cups throughout the day. I just usually make one and just kind of savor it throughout the day. I like popcorn. Sometimes I like that, just having like one thing to like just nibble at as I'm working, right? So it's, not like eating a big sandwich, but just like, okay, I'm gonna have one nut and then just, so no, I don't think there's really not anything in particular, I, I I feel like if I was too immersed in my writing, I might get, you know, not mindful about my eating, that might be a problem.
And has New England been important in your writing at all?
Honestly, no, I live in Chicago.
Oh, I guess it hasn't been then.
I live in Chicago. I've, been to a few. I've been to Boston. I've been to um, Northampton and Hatfield
Mhm.
and those areas there. But I'm not a New Englander, so I guess it has not been that important to my writing.
Yeah, when you said you had been to Jay and Yolen's, I was wondering about
Yes,
that.
yes. But I'm a Midwestern girl.
Okay. Um, all right. I guess that's just about all the questions I have for you, except for where can people find your work aside from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester?
Well, I'm a big supporter of independent bookstores. So I feel like they're just so important to our communities, and we need to do everything we can to help them out, especially now. So if you are, you know, purchasing books for the holidays or presents or even for yourself, please support Annie's or your local independent bookseller. The big online company does not need our money for books, but our independent bookstores do. So whenever possible, I always try to support independent stores, but my books are available, you know, and if your store does not carry the exact book that you want, they can always get it for you. So you can always just ask them to order. And I also just wanted to mention that this Made by Maxine, the sequel is coming out in February, and she grows a garden with her friend. So this book is coming out in February, and I believe it's available for pre-order now. The box set is also an excellent gift. And then there's another box set of the regular science books, and it has coding, thermodynamics, gravity, and aerospace engineering, which is the book that I read. And there's a bunch of other titles too. So go on Annie's website and take a look, and if you just, enter my name, I'm sure you'll see all the different books that are in this series. And I am on social media as Ruth Spiro everywhere. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter. And I love, love, love when people send or tag me in pictures of their kids with my books. I always like to share those. And I love to interact with people who are fans of my books.
That's great. Thank you. I wanted to say that you can order books from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester. Our phone number is 508-796-5613. And you can order books from us at orders@anniesbooksworcester.com. And we will order any books you want from us, and we will mail them to you. And our website is www.anniesbooksworcester.com. And I just wanted to ask you, Ruth, what else can we expect from you in the future?
So there are more and more baby love science books coming out. The next grouping that we're working on, I think I can be like the weather girl here. So there's baby loves political science. So there's democracy and justice, and then in the spring is Congress and the presidency. So it's all the branches of government. So
Wow.
democracy is about election day and how that works. And the nonpartisan, just about how we vote and why it's important to vote. And then the other, justice, Congress, and the presidency are all about the 3 different branches of government. So those 2 are coming out in the spring. As I mentioned, the next Maxine book is coming out in February. And then there are more books coming out a year from now, but I haven't divulged what the topics are yet, but there are ever more baby love science books coming, so stay tuned.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And it was wonderful talking to you. And
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And we will hopefully see a lot more books from you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate your support. Bye.
Bye.